Total Screen proudly presents the Weekly Set Podcast with Tyson Gifford and William Rohrig. Episode 121, recorded June 22nd, 2019. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Weekly Set, the official podcast of the Total Screen. I'm your host. My name is Tyson, and joining me today, as always, is my partner in crime here at the Total Screen, William Rohrig.
Hello.
So today is our fourth and last week of our exhaustive search for the next Game of Thrones. By that, of course, we don't mean the next fantasy series exactly like Game of Thrones or the next spin-off series. We mean the next water cooler show, the next show that people are going to be talking about. Some of these could be that show. Some of them are just really good-looking shows that are coming up that we're hopeful for, and who knows what could happen. And some of them are probably way off the base, but we've been doing it for the last 4 weeks. This is our last one, our fourth one. And this time we're focusing in on two specific comic book brands, basically. Millarworld, which is Mark Millar's studio where all of his comics are made, which is bought by Netflix. The whole comic book company was bought by Netflix. And so anything you buy from that comic book company now are actually Netflix published comics.
Yeah, Netflix publishes comics now. Like, if you didn't realize that probably just blew your mind.
But in addition, what we all expected when they bought Millarworld, we weren't like, oh wow, they're gonna have all these comic books. What we were all like is like, oh, now they can just push out any series they want from him.
Right, exactly.
They haven't had its rights already claimed up, you know?
Yeah. The real pick is they didn't do it just to get into a comic publishing game. They did it so that they can have access to this IP and develop this stuff into shows.
Some of his past stuff is still probably not available. Like, I don't know if, like, they might be able to remake, like, Wanted or something, but...
Right.
But I don't know.
I don't know, like, I don't know what the contract was, because, like, stuff like Wanted was, I think Wanted was published under Marvel. There was a huge stretch of time where Millar was writing for Marvel and he was doing creator-owned stuff under an imprint under an imprint published by Marvel.
Is that just Wanted, or does that include some of the other properties like Kingsman? They're still making the movie, so they can't,
Right.
That's obviously the rights belong to somebody else on that. But like, for example, Kick-Ass might be available now.
Right. I'm not sure exactly what it encompasses. Actually, I was wrong. It looks like Marvel never actually published his creator-owned stuff. It's mostly through Image Comics. Mostly through Image Comics, and then now Netflix.
So it's curious who has, like, the full rights on that now.
Yeah.
We'll have to see, because I'm sure they're going to tap into everything they can.
So these are the comics currently being published by Netflix. Now these don't necessarily have any attached shows currently announced, but Netflix is currently publishing The Magic Order, Prodigy, and Sharky the Bounty Hunter.
Yeah.
From Millarworld.
Some of them are just, they're concluded.
Yeah.
So there's some series that have also been concluded and stuff that they own the rights to. Magic Order is actually the first comic from his label that's under the Netflix acquisition.
Yes.
That came out after they were acquired. So basically, Netflix did what we all thought they were going to do, which is they just announced, like, hey, we're just going to make, like, a whole shit ton of stuff from these properties they own. So they announced 2 TV shows and 3 movies. So we're not really going to talk about the movies, because we'll be here all day if we're talking about all the great movies coming too,
Yeah. And again, the point is we're looking for the next Game of Thrones. We're looking for the next water cooler show.
Yeah.
Movie doesn't fit with that.
But yeah, so they initially announced 2 TV shows and they added a third one soon after. That was the one I was the most excited about, so I'm so glad they added that one. But the first 2 they announced were Jupiter's Legacy, which this one's going to be adapted and run by Stephen S. DeKnight, who did the Spartacus shows on Starz, and he also did Daredevil Season 1. Those are kind of the main things he's known for. If you go further back into his credits history, he was a Whedonite.
Yeah, he was a Whedonite.
Shows, and after that he wrote or directed or both the second Pacific Rim movie and some other stuff, but his TV show stuff is the stuff you want to pay more attention to.
He's good because I said before the podcast, like Mark Millar has good ideas, but he's kind of a trashy writer. Like he's not all that great of a writer in my opinion. But Stephen S. DeKnight, he could take trashy material and do amazing things with it. Like Spartacus on paper is like the definition of trash. Like, so it, like,
that's that series I always describe as being better than it has any right being.
Right. Yeah. Better than any right. Like, if you look at the concept on paper, like, you're like, wow, this is like some soap opera exploitive trash. Like, this can't be any good.
Riding the coattails of the 300.
Yeah, riding the coattails of 300. Stephen S. DeKnight takes it and he makes it amazing.
Yeah. Better than it had any right being. That's what it is.
Yes. So,
and of course, Daredevil Season 1 is probably what most people have seen his work.
Yes, and Daredevil Season 1 is still one of the best seasons of that entire Netflix MCU project. Like, Daredevil came right out of the gate and blew people away. It actually, like, made me excited for everything else. Even, like, the stuff that wasn't that great. But I think it set the bar probably a little too high at the time. So he does great stuff. So like, and again, this is a great premise. It's a group of people who gain abilities in 1982 and they become a superhero team.
Oh, it's earlier than that, 1932.
Oh yeah, 1932.
This is like, after the main character in this was like I think a broker who lost everything on, Black Friday.
Right.
So.
So you could already like see like all the cool shit Stephen S. DeKnight can do with this.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna follow generations, so it's like you have the main cast, you have their entire careers, and then you have their children. And their careers, and that's like one of the big parts. I mean, it's right in the title, Jupiter's Legacy. It's about a legacy of superpowers that carries on through multiple generations. So, and it goes all the way up to modern times, and I think beyond, actually. They released some cast information for this show. Most of them are kind of not really recognizable people. The one that's more recognizable in the lead role is, Josh Duhamel. He was in 11/22/63. He's been in a ton of other stuff. He's playing Sheldon Sampson, the leader of the superhero team, the Union. So he's kind of like the guy that kicks this whole series off. And yeah, it's kind of a deconstruction of American ideals and superheroes. So that's usually my favorite kind of like superhero stuff, is the deconstruction stuff, the stuff that kind of looks at it and dissects it and finds a new approach at it. So, Mark Millar's done that kind of stuff before. Kick-Ass is kind of like that, is kind of a deconstruction as well. But Jupiter's Legacy looks like a real deconstruction specifically of like Superman and like the DC stuff from that early era of the Silver Age. So that's going to be a really interesting one to watch with Stephen S. DeKnight attached.
Definitely, for sure.
The next series is, even though the third series was announced later down the line, the next series still has probably the least amount of information about it, and that's an adaptation of American Jesus. This is about a 12-year-old boy who seems to be the reincarnation of Jesus. He has Jesus-like abilities. He turns water to wine. He can make the crippled walk. They hint he can even maybe raise the dead. So you kind of take on the idea of like, a Jesus-like figure, a savior, messianic figure.
This is based off of a 2009 comic Mark Millar wrote for Image Comics.
And so, okay, so that kind of tells us something. That means that the ones that Image had with him and on his contract now belong to Netflix.
Well, yeah. Image is actually, it's creator owned. So Image doesn't actually own any rights, itself. Like the creators of the comics that Image publishes owns all the rights to the properties. That's how Robert Kirkman was able to take, The Walking Dead to AMC. AMC didn't have to negotiate with Image for that. Robert Kirkman was able to just do it, make that deal.
Cool. So that's, that's about all we know about this series, unfortunately. I think the series is complete. So if we were to go through, we could read it and give you a full dissection of the story, but
I haven't read it. I don't know anything about it other than literally that plot synopsis, because that was the same synopsis when the comic book came out, and I never checked it out any further than that. So that's literally all I know as well.
If there's more information on this, I wasn't able to find it. But I wasn't able to find a showrunner. I wasn't able to find a cast. I mean, maybe that information's out there. I just wasn't able to find it, but that's all we could find on that one.
Pretty much.
Next one up is the one I was most excited for. And they announced this almost around the same time as the acquisition happened. I think before they even announced all these projects, they announced the beginning of this series, as a comic book series. And so it was like, oh, so this is going to be a ways off. We aren't going to get this one as a TV series.
This was actually the first comic book published by Netflix under Mark Millar's deal with Netflix.
Yeah.
So the other two, the other two, Jupiter's Legacy and American Jesus, were not originally comics published under Netflix. Jupiter's Legacy was also published with Image, and so was American Jesus. But The Magic Order is a comic currently being published by Netflix and was the first comic Netflix published under their new deal with Mark Millar, which suggests that this property was specifically developed with a Netflix series in mind.
Yeah. And I was worried when it was announced at that point, because it was the most exciting, one for me to be adapted as a TV series, except that it was so early that I'm like, oh, but they're not going to make a series for this because it just started. So if they do a series, it'll be way down the line. And then within a month or two, they announced it as being in development as a TV series as well. So I was super excited. This one's it's The Magic Order is the name of it. It's got James Wan attached to direct the pilot. He just is coming off of Aquaman.
Yeah, he's doing a victory lap from Aquaman.
Yeah. Lindsay Beer is on board as the showrunner. She did the Netflix movie Sarah Burgess is a Loser that starred Barb from Stranger Things. Mm-hmm. So she's kind of got experience with teen melodrama kind of, stuff like that, which I think is going to play into this a little bit. But basically it's about 5 families of magicians that keep the world safe from supernatural threats. But members of these families are being picked off one by one under mysterious circumstances. So it's magic. Mm-hmm. And that's my bread and butter.
Yes. That is your bread and butter. It sounds good. James Wan, he convinced people to watch an Aquaman movie. So what can you say?
Yeah. So it should have an action-packed pilot, and it should have it just looks cool. If you've seen the art for it and stuff, it just looks cool. I'm really hoping that translates over. And when you look at what Netflix has been able to do with kind of higher concepts, comic book material like Umbrella Academy, it's it gives you a lot of hope for what they're going to be able to do for something like this.
Right, exactly. I'm looking forward to this as well, to be honest, just based off the concept.
And that takes us to our end of the Mark Millar slate. But that's not the end of this. Now we're going on to Marvel. So the rest of this is all Marvel. There's a lot of Marvel stuff in development.
It's Marvel, baby.
A lot of stuff across a variety of platforms. Well, mainly just over 2 platforms, I should say. If you followed the news and you know that the acquisition of Fox's assets, not necessarily Fox because there's still a separate Fox company that still exists, but Fox's assets were bought by Disney. So now Disney owns the rights to all that, all the old Fox stuff. But in addition to that, they also now have a controlling stake in Hulu. So now Hulu has become basically overnight has gone from being a platform that they had ownership in to a platform that basically belongs to them.
Even further, you saw the news that, Universal NBC, now that I think that now that NBC is owned by, Comcast, I think.
Mm-hmm.
They're selling their share in Hulu to Disney now.
Yeah, they're just basically going to own it outright. I mean, it doesn't even matter at this point. They already own controlling interest.
Right.
I think they own something like 66% because it was in thirds and they owned 1/3 and now they own 2/3. So
now they own 2/3.
So they have complete controlling interest. But they also announced that they have their own streaming platform coming. They have big plans for that. So then the question was like, well, so they gonna jettison Hulu? No.
Oh.
They have Hulu and Disney Plus, their new streaming service. And both platforms are getting new Marvel shows.
Although I got to admit, the Hulu stuff I'm not as excited for. Anything coming from that side, anything coming from Marvel Television is I'm less enthusiastic about because
It's true.
Yeah.
And it's not direct MCU tie-in.
Right, it's not.
But even still, these still look like pretty decent shows. So it'll be interesting to see. And they're also kind of creating their own little Hulu MCU, apparently. So they have 2 shows coming. If you know about Hulu and Marvel, you know they already have a Marvel show. They have Runaways on Hulu. There's actually some talk that not only will these 2 series cross over, but it might even cross over with Runaways as well. Yeah. So they'll have kind of like their own little universe.
Hulu-verse.
Yeah, the Hulu Marvel verse.
Less exciting than the Netflix Marvel verse. And even less exciting.
But let's talk about these shows. So first up, we have Helstrom. This is being show run by Paul Zebewski, Zebzewski. I can't pronounce his last name. But this guy, he's got decent credits on him. He was the showrunner on a series called Daybreak that most people don't know about probably. It only lasted 1 season, but it was like basically the whole season was like a Groundhog's Day season. Oh, man, like every episode was in this Groundhog's Day mold.
I thought they were going to give Scott Buck another show.
No,
another chance.
Thankfully not.
Yeah.
But he went on from Daybreak to writing on Lost. And then he went from Lost to writing on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Okay.
Which makes it interesting for the next series we're going to talk about, but we're still going to stick on Helstrom at first. So he's going to serve as showrunner for this series, and he's on as a producer on the other series that we'll bring up after. But this series is about 2 children of a powerful and mysterious serial killer who might just be the devil.
Right.
In the comics, the characters' names are Damon and Satana, and this one it's Damon and Anna. They cut off the Sata.
Maybe that was like 2 in your face.
Yeah. But these characters, they seem to have some kind of demonic powers, which again ties in with the next series we're going to mention. Their abilities include the ability to travel back and forth between Earth and Hell. So this is from the comic book. So we don't know how much of this is going to come into the actual show. I mean, they could just make their father just a straight up serial killer that's not actually a demon or Satan or something, you know?
Right.
We don't know.
Too bad it can't be a crossover with Netflix Lucifer. But
well, Dad.
Yeah, exactly.
But the next series we're going to talk about is kind of the most interesting of these 2, and that's Ghost Rider. And this is interesting not only because you think about all this stuff like, traveling back and forth from hell, Ghost Rider. It just fits so naturally into that universe, but it's also because this isn't Johnny Blaze Ghost Rider, this is Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider.
Robbie. And you know, they had Robbie Reyes Ghost Rider on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. for like
played by an actor named Gabriel Luna. Guess who's playing him in this version?
Gabriel Luna?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Ding, ding, ding.
So there's rumors going around that this is actually not a continuation from S.H.I.E.L.D., that they're not continuing his story from S.H.I.E.L.D., but they're starting it over. They're just using the same actor. Which is very weird, if that's the case.
Which makes it not be a universe anymore. What the fuck are you doing? Don't ruin the entire concept of this connected universe, you idiots.
But there are some differences here. This one takes place in the Texas-Mexico border, whereas Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., the show itself didn't take place in Los Angeles, but the Robbie Reyes stuff did take place in Los Angeles.
It takes place a lot. Yeah, exactly.
As I mentioned, Helstrom and Ghost Rider are expected to cross over, and potentially even to cross over with The Runaways, which is already on Hulu, to create a bigger extended Hulu Marvel universe. So you don't sound too jazzed about The Runaways, Asta.
Not really. I don't care. I don't care about like this stuff because it literally has nothing to do with anything, and so I'm just like, I'm less enthused for it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Helstrom sounds really interesting, and Ghost Rider.
They sound interesting, like.
And Ghost Rider was great on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Yeah, you're right.
So you take those, you take it off of network TV where they're under less constraints to be, PG-13, I should say. They can go a little bit darker and stuff. And I don't know, like, that's kind of interesting, like a Marvel Hell universe.
Marvel Hell universe. Marvel Hell.
They gotta, like we were talking about, like people were like, maybe they should put Blade in the Netflix MCU, but kind of looks like Blade might fit better in this version.
Yeah, Blade might fit better in this version. I want them to do a new Blade movie.
That would be cool too.
TV show. But
that would be cool too. But yeah, so those are the live action shows coming to Hulu from Marvel. There's more stuff coming to Hulu from Disney as well. There's a really surprising big batch of shows coming. It's kind of almost a parody of what they did with Netflix, but we'll get to that later. Because now we're moving on to the other big live action shows, which is what's coming to Disney Plus.
Now, and this stuff is way more exciting.
Well, there's a few points here that we need to bring up about their initiative, the MCU Disney Plus initiative. One is that the actors representing these characters are the same actors from the movies.
Well, yeah, because these are direct tie-ins to the films, like.
Yeah, but they're not finding cheap ways around it, like, oh, this is a young Scarlet Witch when she was like a teenage girl or something.
Oh,
you know?
These actually have for what I've heard, these actually are given the same budget as an MCU film is. That
was the next point I was just about to bring up, was that these are big budget shows. These are like $150 million shows.
Disney really wants people to sign up for Disney Plus. So, yes.
So these are like basically, I think they're like, all of them are about 6 episodes long, I think. They're short seasons, like British style seasons. And it's basically taking a budget of what would be like, say, a 2-hour Marvel movie. Yeah, or 2.5-hour Marvel movie and stretching it over 6 hours.
Yeah, these are miniseries because, you know, you're not going to have Anthony Mackie do like a multi-season Falcon series in addition to whatever movies are in his contract. You know, he's gonna get burnt out on doing that pretty quick. But for a miniseries, it works. You can do it.
Yeah, it's smart. It's a really good idea. It's the most exciting thing about Disney Plus, in my opinion. Some people might say The Mandalorian, which we already talked about, but I'm more Marvel than Star Wars, so.
Right, but The Mandalorian, it is good, like, because Disney is taking these properties they own, Marvel and Star Wars, and they're making TV series, but they're making movie quality TV series. You know, these aren't TV budgets, these are movie budgets, which changes.
Yeah, these are HBO budgets, you know?
Yeah, these are film budgets, so like, that changes. So it's gonna be there's a huge difference between this stuff and the stuff we just talked about. The Ghost Rider and Helstrom are gonna be working with traditional TV budgets.
Yes, they're gonna be working with much less. There's still gonna be entertaining shows, because low budget doesn't mean not a great show. I mean, Magicians is a very low budget comparative show, but it's a great show.
Don't confuse low budget with great things have been done with low budgets. I mean, watch The Evil Dead 2. Like, Sam Raimi filmed that on basically nothing, and it's a classic.
Or, you know, director Robert Rodriguez, his first movie, El Mariachi, famously made for $7,000.
Right, exactly. So, don't confuse budget with quality, but it does mean that, you know, like, with the Disney Plus, you are going to get better special effects. You do have the film actors who command a higher salary than TV actors do, you know.
Yeah, it's higher priority, definitely.
Yeah, it's higher, yeah.
So the first of these is The Falcon and Winter Soldier, which is going to have Anthony Mackie and Sebastian Stan reprising their roles as the Falcon and Winter Soldier. It's also been heavily rumored, and believed just to be straight out true now, that Daniel Bruhl, who played Zemo in Civil War, and Emily Van Camp, who was in Winter Soldier and Civil War, who played Sharon Carter, that they're both going to be in this as well.
Right. This is basically Captain America 4, because it has everybody from a Captain America movie except for Steve Rogers.
Yeah, Steve Rogers and Nick Cage, but Nick Cage even showed up in S.H.I.E.L.D., so.
Yeah, he even showed up in S.H.I.E.L.D., so he could still show up in this. He's just not a main player.
Yeah.
You don't know. You don't know what surprises they have, but yeah.
This is also, it's going to be directed by Carrie Skoglund, who is doing some episodes of The Rook, which which is a series that I talked about last week being interested that's coming out in one of our shows we discussed. She also did some episodes of The Punisher, and she's done a bunch of episodes of The Handmaid's Tale, which is really critically well received on Hulu.
Oh, nice.
So, she's going to be, directing this project, apparently. They just said directing the show, not directing the pilot. So I think she's directing all the episodes. I'm not sure.
Mm-hmm.
That would be kind of more along the lines. A 6-episode thing makes me think of British TV, and British TV usually has like one director do the whole show.
Oh, okay.
So, that would make sense if that's the case. The next show up on the list is WandaVision. This has Elizabeth Olsen and Paul Bettany reprising their roles as, Scarlet Witch and Vision.
It's interesting too where this takes place because
Spoiler alert.
Spoilers, in the current MCU, Vision is dead. He wasn't zapped back to life with the Infinity Stones,
Yeah.
He's gone. So it's interesting to see that's why you said it expected to be a prequel because, Vision's dead. How could this be anything but a prequel? But
I think this is going to take place between Civil War and Infinity War.
Yeah, because Civil War is when Wanda and Vision really became close.
Yes.
So.
And then, in Infinity War, of course, it was all about kind of their relationship coming to an end because of Thanos' quest. But between that, we know when we first see them in Infinity War, they're in Edinburgh, in Scotland. And they've been kind of like talking about how they've just been kind of like moving around and doing stuff.
Right.
That seems like set up for like, they were moving around and doing stuff. Let's see what they were moving around and doing.
Yeah, so that might be where this is set. We get to see what they've been doing between Civil War and Infinity War.
Potentially the most exciting aspect, maybe it's filmed in Edinburgh.
Yeah, maybe.
Edinburgh is an amazing city in Scotland. It's probably one of my favorite places I've ever visited. So that would be cool. Next up, we have this is the series that was like, they used to describe this idea that they were doing with their MCU Disney Plus project. This is the first one they mentioned.
Yeah, this is the first one. And again, if you watched Infinity War, you're probably like, well, how are they going to do this? Endgame gave us a nice little idea.
We should say real quick, it's Loki.
Yeah. It's Loki, yeah. Endgame gave us a nice little idea of how this series is possible now.
At this point, I think that they straight up did that scene specifically for this series.
I think they did too. Yeah.
Endgame had a scene in which Loki snuck away with one of the Infinity Stones. And we know that it eventually finds its way back because they steal it again at a different point. But
they steal it again. And again, they also they go to pains to explain this. You can't actually change the past. You just create new universes, like alternate timelines.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like Loki escaped and he's alive again in the current timeline. No, he's still dead in the current main timeline. There's just now a universe where he escaped and he's possibly not dead, which is presumably the universe that this show takes place in.
Yes. Again, this is Tom Hiddleston reprising the role of Loki, and they describe the series as him influencing events in Earth history.
Right.
Michael Waldron is on for showrunner. He worked on Harmon Quest and Rick and Morty. So that makes you think it's going to have more of a comedic lean on it, which is good for Loki.
Yeah, which is good for Loki, and it's good because we can get to see Tom Hiddleston kind of stretching his comedic chops.
Yeah, get to see him really kind of hamming it up and
yes. I'm looking forward to this because I think it'll be really fun. I'm probably looking forward to this the most of the Disney Plus Marvel shows because I think Tom Hiddleston's Loki is a really cool character, a really fun character, and I can't wait to see him just get an entire show to ham it up.
Well, he's always been like restrained if you think about it.
Yes.
Like he's always been kind of like opposed, and every time he's had some kind of grand plan or something, he's always faced a lot of opposition in it.
Yes.
And this series is basically going to be him completely unopposed doing whatever he wants.
Right.
It's just going to be fascinating to watch.
I can't wait. honestly.
There's a still that's been released that shows Loki in a costume that's reminiscent of what he wore when he went to like the opera in the first Avengers movie.
Mm-hmm.
In that scene, like he's wearing something very similar to that, but he's at like, it's like 1930s or not 1930s, 1970s, and you see a movie theater in the background that shows that Jaws had just come out. So he's supposedly influencing events in Earth history through the series. So it's weird because he has the space stone, not the time stone. But, I'm sure we'll find out how he got into this position, or he's able to go into, maybe it isn't the loophole in Endgame. Maybe this is literally shit that really did happen during these time periods.
I don't know. We'll have to.
No matter what it is, it's going to be interesting. So that's one, definitely looking forward to Loki. And then the last project that we know of so far, because this seems like something that they're going to be rolling out in phases, just like they do the movies. Like, we're not going to get Falcon and Winter Soldier Season 2. We're going to get like these 4, and then we're going to get like completely different ones besides those.
Right, exactly.
Like maybe we'll get one with Shuri, like Black Panther's sister, like focusing on her.
These are in no way ongoing series that they're going to do.
They're mini-series.
These actors have other commitments, they're film actors. They're not TV actors, So, and you don't get film actors to do TV unless it's a limited, engagement. Like, Woody Harrelson and, Matthew McConaughey weren't going to sign up and do like 5 seasons of True Detective.
Yeah.
This was not going to happen.
What's interesting about this next one, which is the only one that doesn't have a title yet, it's just called Untitled Hawkeye Series, and it has Jeremy Renner reprising his role. What's really interesting here, though, is that they specifically said that this is about him training his protege, Kate Bishop, who eventually is going to take over his mantle when he retires. And what makes this so interesting is that this could be a character that's born in the Disney Plus show that ends up going into the movies.
Yeah, well, I think that's what they're doing. Yeah, I mean, we should not ignore that this is not like the Hulu stuff. This isn't like the Netflix stuff where it's like it takes place in the same universe. Wink,
they
wink.
reference the event,
Yeah, they reference the event. It's like wink, wink, but it's like not really connected to anything. These are directly connected to the films, and so stuff that happens in these, have the potential to impact the films as well as the films, and so Kate Bishop is definitely somebody who could show up in a future Avengers film.
Mm-hmm. That's the most likely of all of the characters from all these different ones to actually show up in a movie.
Kate Bishop in Avengers 5. Yes.
Because they already seem to be laying the groundwork for Young Avengers.
Right.
Which is, they have Ant-Man's daughter. They've aged her up now with this time skip at the end of Endgame. So now, like, she's a comic book character too. Right. So you have her kind of in place. You have Robert Downey Jr. or Tony Stark's daughter. Well, right now she's young, but over time, give it a couple,
years, and
you have
on her own right.
Exactly. You also had they brought in for Tony's funeral scene in Endgame. They brought in the kid from Iron Man 3, who's now a young adult.
Yeah, which was a nice touch, I thought. Like I don't know, like how long it took you to figure out who it was.
I didn't get it till I saw things talking about it.
Okay.
But what's interesting
I actually got it in the theater, but it took me a minute because I was like, wait, who the hell is that? And I'm like, oh, yeah, Iron Man 3.
But people brought up that they could turn that kid basically into Iron Lad. So there's like possibilities here that they're already setting up some stuff for Young Avengers, basically.
Right.
And so Kate Bishop seems like a real obvious one to go on for there, So that's just going to be really interesting. That'll be the first time we'll ever see a TV show, an MCU TV show, actually influence the movies. So that's cool. Those are the live action shows. Now we have kind of a little bonus part here. We're going to go over these a little bit quicker, I think, but, there's some animated shows coming to Hulu, 5 actually, which is familiar because that's when they announced the Netflix deal. And remember how mind-blowing that was when they announced that deal for the first time, their Netflix, Defenders deal. This one is the Hulu Offenders deal.
Yeah, so these are animated series. These are going to be upbeat and irreverent, you know?
And offensive.
Offensive, yes. Howard the Duck looks the most promising just because of the people they got on that. Well, they got great people on all these, to be honest.
Yeah, all of these is pretty good if you really pay attention. I mean, Modok's got Patton Oswalt attached.
Yes.
You know, if he ends up voicing Modok as well, that's going to be a pretty big deal.
I think Patton Oswalt did say he's doing the voice of Modok.
Okay. So that's going to be really cool. So basically, to go through these really quickly and who's involved. Hitmonkey is being done by Josh Gordon and Will Steck. They wrote and directed Office Christmas Party and Blades of Glory. So kind of real slapstick kind of comedies. And it's about an assassin monkey.
It's exactly what the title says.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tigra and Dazzler is being done by Erica Rivinoja, I think maybe, who worked on South Park and The Last Man on Earth. I love South Park. Last Man on Earth was also a really funny show on Fox. And TV personality Chelsea Handler that is teaming up with her to make this. And it's about a duo of woke heroes in Los Angeles. I really know nothing about Tigra and Dazzler.
The only thing I know about Dazzler is she was an X-Men character from the 70s, and I think her powers were similar to Jubilee's.
I think it's interesting that they have all these characters that are really lined up to be really offensive characters, and then you have these two woke characters that almost seem like they're going to be the foils of those characters, you know, like they're going to be the antithesis of the main plot or the main idea.
Tigra I know almost nothing about except that she was a mainstay of the Avengers throughout most of the 90s. That's literally all I know about that character.
So next up we have Modok is being done by Jordan Blum, who worked as a writer on Community and American Dad. A great, resume to have right there, especially Community. And comedian actor Patton Oswalt, as we mentioned. It's about a giant evil floating head with unreliable henchmen.
Well, you're underselling it, right? Because he's not just a head with henchmen. He is the leader of AIM, which is one of the infamous evil organizations in the Marvel universe, which I have to look up what AIM
is an acronym for.
Yeah, is an acronym for. God damn it, Google.
Agents of Immeasurable Might or something like that. I don't know.
Let's see. Oh, Advanced Idea Mechanics is the name of the organization. A version of AIM appeared in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in Iron Man 3.
So what's interesting here is that it's just Patton Oswalt playing this character that's being heavily described as something like almost like a Pinky in the Brain type description of like.
Yeah, like if Modok was like the brain type character.
Yeah, and he has his henchman filling in the role for Pinky.
Yeah. Apparently, according to Wikipedia, AIM's third and final major achievement was the creation of Modok. So that'll be interesting to see that one as well. And then, as you said, probably the most promising looking one is Howard the Duck, which has been teased in the MCU since Guardians of the Galaxy. Oh, yeah. So Howard the Duck is in the MCU because Howard the Duck appears in the MCU in a stinger segment at the end of the first Guardians of the Galaxy. And he also appears in a blink and you miss it for a second in Endgame when they bring
the world.
Yeah, he saves the world. It is an Endgame and a blink and you miss it scene because at the end when all the characters that were snapped out of existence by Thanos are snapped back into existence, you see Howard the Duck among those characters, implying that he was snapped away as well.
If you caught him on your first viewing without looking for him, then you probably also found the coffee cup on your first viewing.
Yeah, exactly. No, I did not catch him on my first viewing. I saw a screenshot after the fact, but
yeah.
But so he's in the movie, but this is not MCU Howard the Duck. This is a cartoon version of Howard the Duck.
So this one's being done by Kevin Smith and Dave Wills. Kevin says that Dave Wills is going to be the kind of showrunner, the lead creative force.
Which is awesome because Dave Wills did Aqua Teen Hunger Force, one of the best irreverent animated comedies of all time.
Yeah.
So I'm super excited for this all of a sudden because I didn't even know he was involved. And I'm like, yeah, this is going to be great.
This kind of seems to be pointing away from the direction that the movie took in that it's going to focus on kind of the existential metafiction.
Oh yeah, that
the movie just kind of completely jettisoned.
Exactly. well, because, it's that movie was George Lucas, and George Lucas is not that good.
So that's Howard the Duck. And then, of course, like in the Defenders deal at Netflix, all of these heroes, or heroes in quotation marks, however you want to look at it, are going to do a team up or crossover or whatever series called The Offenders, which is just brilliant. It makes this whole thing a parody of what they did with Netflix.
Yes. And then what I'm personally super excited for, one of my all-time favorite Marvel comic book series is being adapted.
This is for Disney Plus.
Yeah, for Disney Plus. This is also an animated series for Disney Plus, but this is in a more serious vein. Sorta, kinda, I guess. But I should stop being around the bush. It's Marvel's What If.
Yeah, it's an anthology series, so it could be serious one episode and funny the next.
Right, yeah, because What If did serious stories and they also did goofy stories. Like, sometimes they had serious stories like, what if Kraven the Hunter had killed Spider-Man? Which was kind of a fucked up story because he murders Spider-Man and then he puts on Spider-Man's costume and then runs around fighting crime as Spider-Man.
It's similar to what the first episode announced.
Like he eats like a bunch of spiders and then he's like, I'm Spider-Man now. And it's like, okay.
They're doing something somewhat similar to that for the first episode of Marvel's What If. And this continues along the lines of Disney Plus, the Disney Plus Marvel shows calling in the original actors. Even though this is animated, the first episode has Haley Atwell from Agent Carter and also from the Captain America movies reprising her role as Peggy Carter.
Yep, and this is what if Peggy Carter got the super soldier serum and became Captain America instead of Steve Rogers.
Yeah, that's the first episode. So we already know what the first episode of this anthology series is about.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
Really cool.
That's really cool. And so
it's also a nice little return because, those of us that liked Agent Carter get to see Agent Carter again.
Yeah, I get to see Agent Carter again. Yeah, in a completely new light.
So this will be cool. I hope they balance it well so that if they do a more serious story one week and then the next week they can just do something just really wacky.
Yeah.
Funny. And then go something serious again or something, interesting and compelling in a different way. So it's an anthology series not in the vein of American Horror Story where it's a whole season, but in the vein of Black Mirror or Twilight Zone, in which each episode is its own self-contained story.
Yeah, each episode is its own self-contained story. And they did goofy ones too. Like they did one what if James Brown became the Incredible Hulk?
Yeah, this is one that I hope they just keep going. That they don't do it as a miniseries. They just do it every season.
Yeah.
Keep making more seasons. And I hope they have between seasons they take fan submissions.
Right. Because like I said, this being animated, it's not the same commitment as their live action series. And it being just every episode is its own story, they don't have to contract people for extended periods. They just get people to come in and do some voices for an episode.
Well, that's the other thing. It's only voice work, which means they're probably going to be able to reach out to people like Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans and, people that were involved in the MCU that are now kind of moving past that. But this is a very, very low commitment thing. They don't even need to be in shape. They could just, they could even do it from their home studios.
Yeah, they could even
a local studio and send it in. It's very low commitment, and that's why it's going to be interesting to see because I think that's what they're going to do. I think they're going to be having a bunch of characters from the MCU show up in this, and they're going to be voiced by the people from the MCU, even people that have long since left.
Yeah, Kevin Feige basically described this as this is exploring what things that could have happened in the MCU in the Marvel movies that we didn't see play out in the films.
I want to see what if Ronan the Accuser defeated the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah. Or what if they actually had that dance off?
There's actually a video of that. Have you seen that?
Yeah, I saw the video.
Where they're all doing dance moves. Like,
yeah, they actually did that as an outtake. That was like super cool. I love it.
New face is like, who plays Ronan the Accuser? It's like, you're on.
Yeah, you're on.
And then yeah, everybody else does it too, even Drax.
Yes. It's great.
So yeah, what if he defeated the Guardians of the Galaxy and went on and just destroying everything with an Infinity Stone?
Right, exactly.
Like, that would be an interesting one to watch, you know? I mean, they could bring up questions with their own Disney Plus series and then answer them on What If.
Yeah, they can do that. What I love about this is the possibilities are endless.
It's like, what if Hawkeye was training Peter Parker instead of Kate Bishop? You know? What if Peter Parker was the new Hawkeye instead of Spider-Man? Like, there's all sorts of like cool things they could do. So yeah, that's gonna be a really fun one to watch. And that's the last one in our discussion. So yeah, we'll have to end that there. That's the end of our whole series of looking at the next possible Game of Thrones. Next week, we're returning to more of a normal show discussion format. Well, somewhat, because we're going to be talking about some, like, group stuff. We're going to be talking about Black Mirror, the entire season 5.
Oh, okay.
Just 3 episodes. And we're also going to be talking about Legion, which returns next week. So Black Mirror, season 5, which is 3 episodes, and Legion, the season 3 premiere. So that's what we're going to be talking about next week. And then the week after that, I think we're doing Jessica Jones and Legion. We might shuffle some stuff around though. And then pretty soon after we're into this rotation of stuff, doing Legion, Veronica Mars is starting up. So we're going to be doing that, as well. So we're kind of moving back into our typical show discussion thing. But it was fun to kind of have like a little 4-week diversion from that, you know?
Yeah, it was fun to do something a little different, you know, to have this little breathing room to where we can try something a little different.
Yeah. But one thing we do every week is, now I gotta talk about what's coming up in the week ahead. So we're recording this on Saturday, June 22nd, but on Friday, June 21st, Dark returned to Netflix for its 2nd season. Mr. Iglesias came to Netflix. Ad Vitam came to Netflix. Boulevard to Netflix. Tokyo Alice to Amazon Prime, and Final Life to Amazon Prime. So it's a big streaming week. On Monday, June 24th, 2019, Curfew comes to Spectrum, if you're a Spectrum subscriber. Legion returns to FX. As we said, we're going to be discussing that. That's coming on Monday. Final Space makes the move from TBS to Adult Swim. Forest of Piano, a new anime series, comes to Netflix. And Years, a mini-series comes to HBO that actually sounds kind of interesting. It starts in 2019 and then goes on from there. Over the course of years. And, has stuff like, it's a British series, but it has, like Donald Trump wins and is reelected and all these kind of things start, happening.
No, years and years. No. Not gonna happen. Stop.
So it's got, these different kind of events kind of in our world, and it's kind of foreseeing what happens in the next couple of years from where we are now, which is kind of cool to see near future stuff, but it's our direct future.
Right.
Not just near our times with different technologies or something.
Right. Yeah. Like
actual figures from our time and stuff.
Right. That's an interesting concept. I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah. And it's being done by Russell T. Davies, who did he did the original, not the original, but when Doctor Who came back in the 2000s, he was the guy that kind of speared off that. So he's the one that's going to be doing it. Then on Thursday, June 27th, Answer for Heaven comes to Netflix. And lastly, on Friday, June 28th, Seven Seeds, an anime series, comes to Netflix, as does The Chosen One, Family Business, and Paquita Salas. So Netflix. It's all Netflix.
All Netflix.
Everything
was Netflix.
Yes. You can follow me on Twitter. I'm at Tyson Gifford. You can follow Will. He is at Foxhole Hero. You can check out our Facebook page and our YouTube channel, as well as our site, The Total Screen. You can subscribe to this podcast through any major podcast client like iTunes or Pocket Cast. And the entire backlog of our podcast is available on our YouTube channel. So thank you everybody for listening. Good night.
Night.
If you would like to reach out to us and make a comment,
send an email to contact@thetotalscreen.com. Stay tuned to The Total Screen for the very